Merci beaucoup d'être venu aujourd'hui, tout le monde. On a entendu un témoignage très contradictoire des Kielburger devant le comité de l'éthique. Originalement, les Kielburger et Justin Trudeau ont dit que le programme qui visait à donner plus de 500 millions de dollars à l'organisme uni était créé par un fonctionnaire à un ministère loin du PMO, loin de Justin Trudeau et loin des ministres du cabinet. Et que Justin Trudeau, pour sa part, était étonné de voir la proposition de donner un tel montant d'argent à un organisme qui avait payé sa famille un demi-million de dollars. Par contre, il y a de preuves qui s'accumulent montrant une implication parmi les adjoints politiques qui travaillaient directement pour le premier ministre Justin Trudeau et son ancien ministre des Finances. Par exemple, j'ai demandé à Craig Kielburger il y a quelques mois s'il avait communiqué avec Ben Chin. Originellement, les deux Kielburger ont dit non, pas de communication du tout par rapport à ce programme. L'autre jour, je lui ai demandé encore, est-ce que vous avez communiqué avec Ben Chin, un conseiller d'un très haut niveau de Justin Trudeau? Encore, non. Et selon les Kielburger, M. Chin n'avait aucun rôle important dans la création de ce programme d'un demi-milliard de dollars. J'ai obtenu un courriel que M. Kielburger avait envoyé à M. Chin, disant que offrant un remerciement, par contre, pour son rôle en créant cette contribution. Et je cite, "Hello Ben, thank you for your kindness in helping shape our latest program with the government. Warmly, Craig." Bonjour Ben, merci de votre gentillesse en aidant de créer notre programme récent avec le gouvernement. Sincèrement, Craig. Une réponse de Ben Chin. C'était excellent d'entendre vos nouvelles, Craig. Commençons à travailler pour nos jeunes. C'est une traduction. Donc, oui, contrairement à ce que M. Craig Kielburger avait dit, le bureau du premier ministre et son adjoint principal, Ben Chin, y étaient impliqués dans la création du programme. Quand j'ai montré cette preuve à M. Kielburger, il a dit non, c'était juste un message pour l'inviter à devenir un contact sur LinkedIn. Mais ce n'est pas le cas. Ce n'est pas ce que le message dit. Le message ne dit pas « Merci de m'avoir contacté sur LinkedIn. Merci d'être mon ami sur Facebook. » Ça dit « Merci de votre gentillesse en aidant à créer ce programme avec le gouvernement. » Sincèrement, Craig. Après tout ça, Craig a dit non, c'était pas moi qui ai envoyé le message, même si c'est mon nom, c'était un adjoint qui l'avait envoyé. Mais comment est-ce que l'adjointe aurait su que Ben Chin avait aidé à créer ce programme quand M. Trudeau et les messieurs Kielburger disent que le bureau du premier ministre n'avait aucun rôle dans la création de ce programme. Alors, on a une grave contradiction. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous devons appeler Ben Chin à venir témoigner devant le comité de l'éthique pour clarifier cette contradiction. On veut savoir jusqu'à quel point les adjoints de Justin Trudeau étaient directement impliqués en donnant ce somme massive à cet organisme. Un organisme qui avait payé la famille du Trudeau près un demi-million de dollars en frais et en dépenses. Donc, c'est profondément lié à ce scandale que Justin Trudeau nie que son bureau est impliqué, mais maintenant, on a une correspondance et des contradictions qui montrent que oui, son adjoint principal y était impliqué. D'autres adjoints sont impliqués aussi. Rick Thies, qui était le directeur de politique et des affaires du cabinet. Son nom apparaît dans toutes les correspondances qu'on a obtenues. Et les Kielburger ont parlé à M. Thies, un des Kielburger ont parlé à M. Thies pendant la période où le programme a été créé. Encore, un autre adjoint politique directement dans le bureau de Justin Trudeau. Ça contredit encore ce que Justin Trudeau prétend, que c'était un fonctionnaire loin de lui, dans un ministère de l'autre côté de la rivière d'Ottawa, qui avait créé tout ce programme. Finalement, Amitpal Singh, qui était un adjoint à Bill Morneau, un ministre qui avait reçu à peu près 40 000 $ de bénéfices en voyage des Kielburger et de Oui. Lui, il était impliqué, il avait au moins 8 contacts avec l'organisme uni pendant la création de ce programme. Alors, ces adjoints-là devraient témoigner devant le comité pour qu'on puisse avoir des réponses. Nous voulons des réponses. C'est un scandale où le premier ministre a versé un demi-milliard de dollars à un organisme qui avait payé sa famille un demi-million de dollars. Maintenant, on voit de plus en plus, selon la preuve devant le comité, que le bureau du premier ministre était impliqué dans la création du programme et que ce n'était pas un fonctionnaire dans un ministère loin de lui. Donc, Justin Trudeau est impliqué et nous voulons savoir tous les faits. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. In English now. This week, we heard contradictory testimony from the Kielburgers at committee. You'll recall that both the Kielburgers and the Trudeaus have claimed that this program to give $500 million to We was dreamt up by a bureaucrat at the Employment and Social Development Department and dropped on Justin Trudeau's desk, and that he was an unwilling participant. It was almost rammed down his throat against his will, even that he pushed back against it. But evidence this week suggests quite the contrary, that it wasn't a bureaucrat at Employment and Social Development that concocted the program, but rather that it was a senior advisor to Justin Trudeau himself, in the office of Justin Trudeau himself, Mr. Ben Chin. A quick background. When I originally asked the Kielburgers several months ago if they had been in contact with Ben Chin, they said no. Apart from having met him many years ago, they didn't communicate with him at all. Then this week I asked them, did he play a role in shaping the program? They said, no, not at all. He had nothing to do with it. At which point I unearthed an email that Craig Kielburger himself sent to Ben Chin saying, hello, thank you for your kindness in helping shape our latest program with the government. Warmly, Craig. A response from Ben Chin, again, top advisor to Justin Trudeau, said, great to hear from you, Craig. Let's get our young working, end quote. In other words, clearly, both Craig and Ben thought Ben was a critical part in shaping the program, according to their own correspondence. At which point, a question about these facts, Mr. Kielburger said, listen, that was just my staff member reaching out and asking Ben Chin to be a friend of mine on LinkedIn. But that's not what the message says. It doesn't say, hey, Ben, want to be pals and stay in touch on LinkedIn? By the way, hope you're well. No, it says, hello, Ben. Thank you for your kindness in helping shape our latest program with the government. Warmly, Craig. Now, he says his assistant sent this without his knowledge. How would she have known if Ben Chin was involved in, quote, shaping our latest program with the government. The story makes absolutely no sense. The program, we were told, was shaped by a bureaucrat over at ESDC, having no involvement from PMO other than to simply put it on the Prime Minister's desk at a cabinet meeting and have him passively review and approve it. And we're now learning that the Prime Minister's office was much more involved in this, in the formation of this grant to the group that had paid off his family than he originally told us. So we need Ben Chin, along with a number of other top Liberal advisors at the political level of this government, to come to the Ethics Committee and testify. Remember, this scandal is very simple. Justin Trudeau intervened to give a $500 million grant or contribution to a group that had paid his family roughly $500,000 in fees and expenses. He then claimed it had nothing to do with him, that it was merely a bureaucrat in a faraway department. The evidence suggests that it was his own top staff who were involved in setting it up. We need the facts. We need the truth. If Justin Trudeau has nothing to hide, he'll invite these staff members to come and answer questions. Thank you very much. I now turn the floor over to our Shadow Minister of Ethics, who's done a very able job of leading the prosecution of this file from the very beginning, over to Michael Barrett.
Well, thanks very much, Pierre. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. It is, as Pierre said, very simple, and that's that we have a scandal that is laid very clearly at the feet of Prime Minister Trudeau. It's a situation of his own making, where we have his family given $500,000 in cash and benefits from an organization that his government gave a $500 million deal to, when Canadians were expecting the government to be looking out for everyday Canadians. But instead, the Liberals couldn't help themselves and looked after insiders. So we're calling for 3 individuals to testify, 3 senior individuals in the Trudeau government: Mr. Amitpal Singh, Mr. Ben Chin, and Mr. Rick Thies. Now, why are we calling political staff if the Prime Minister has said that this situation was created inadvertently and coincidentally by members of the bureaucracy? Well, it's as we started to learn very early on, this was not a situation of the making of the bureaucracy, but instead of the politicians and their staff, specifically the Prime Minister and his former finance minister. Now, Mr. Singh was a senior staff member in the office of Bill Morneau. Now, we know that this scandal has caused Mr. Morneau to resign in disgrace from the Trudeau government. We know that, as laid out by Mr. Poilievre, that the correspondence between a senior advisor to the Prime Minister, Mr. Ben Chin, that there was he had his fingerprints on the creation of this program. And we also know that Mr. Thies is a senior advisor in PMO and also to the federal cabinet, where this was eventually signed off. Now, that presentation at cabinet, of course, included pictures of the Prime Minister's family to further underscore the connection directly between Prime Minister Trudeau and the We organization. Now, when we've looked for answers in this scandal before, we have been met with obstruction in the form of prorogation. The Prime Minister shut down Parliament and said when he did so that, and preventing the release of documents, and on the same day that he released heavily blacked out documents, he said there'd be plenty of time for answers when the Commons returned following the prorogation. But when Parliament resumed, committee members, opposition members were met with endless filibusters by members of the government. At the Ethics Committee alone, it was a filibuster equal to 20 regular meetings of that committee. And when the committee finally got through the filibuster to invite key witnesses, including Marc and Craig Kielburger, it took many months of delay and distraction by those two before they finally said they would appear, before they then revoked their offer to appear and said they wouldn't appear even if under summons. But when summoned, they did testify before our committee, and we heard this revelation. Of course, with the story being different than what was told in the summer, they didn't want to appear and testify before our committee. So we're looking for, and we are calling for these three senior Trudeau government political staff to testify before our committee, because Canadians are expecting that they're going to be able to have answers in how this insider advantage was given to these friends of the Trudeau family. Canadians need to have confidence in their public office holders. They need to have confidence in their institutions. When we have a situation where it's $500,000 to family members and then $500 million to that company, it causes a breakdown that Canadians can have in their democratic institutions, and we need to provide Canadians answers so that we can restore their confidence in Canada's Parliament and in the highest offices held in this country. Thanks very much. We'll take your questions.
And we'll now take questions, starting with questions on the phone. A quick reminder, reporter have one question, one follow-up. Un petit rappel, une question suivie par journaliste. Operator, do we have a first question?
Yes, the first question, la première question est de Catherine avec la presse canadienne. La parole est à vous.
Oui, bonjour à vous deux. Monsieur Poilievre, qu'est-ce qui vous fait croire que le dossier de We Charity intéresse encore les Canadiens un an après le début de la pandémie?
Ce qui intéresse les Canadiens, c'est le fait que Justin Trudeau a participé dans la décision de verser un demi-milliard de dollars à un groupe qui avait payé sa famille un demi-million de dollars. On sait que les Canadiens s'y intéressent parce que sinon, Justin Trudeau n'aurait pas eu aucune raison de proroger le Parlement, fermer les portes de la Chambre des communes et empêcher les discussions au comité. Évidemment, il y a des faits contenus dans cet scandale qui fait peur à Justin Trudeau. Donc, c'est clair que les Canadiens s'y intéressent. Sinon, Justin Trudeau n'aurait pas travaillé aussi fort pour camoufler les faits. Donc, nous allons faire en sorte que les Canadiens sachent ce qui s'est produit et que le premier ministre rende des comptes pour le scandale qu'il a créé. Merci.
Et puis, ma question de suivi, en fait, vous me permettrez de déroger du sujet du jour. En fait, c'est de savoir, M. Poilievre, qu'est-ce que vous espérez voir de la part de votre chef lors de la convention de votre parti dans les prochains jours? Et est-ce que vous avez toujours confiance que M. O'Toole, c'est l'homme de la situation?
Oui, j'ai confiance. Et je pense qu'il va présenter un message et un plan conservateur à nos bénévoles et nos supporters. Il va aussi montrer sa vision pour le pays aux Canadiens. Et il va cibler notre priorité principale, c'est la création d'emplois. C'est les chèques de paie pour monsieur et madame tout le monde. On sait qu'une économie basée sur les cartes de crédit va s'effondrer et il va y avoir une énorme crise si on continue simplement de s'endetter pour payer nos factures. Il va falloir créer des emplois pour que les Canadiens puissent payer leurs factures avec un revenu gagné et non pas avec le cadre de crédit national ou ni familial. Et nous sommes le seul parti qui est capable de relancer l'économie. Nous l'avons montré dans les années Harper, où nous avons eu l'économie la plus forte parmi le G7 et nous avons eu une grande relance que tous les autres pays ont célébré en regardant le Canada. Les conservateurs ont réussi à sortir le Canada de cette crise économique au passé. Et nous sommes le seul parti qui est capable de le faire pour l'avenir. Merci.
Operator, next question.
Please press star one at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile maintenant pour poser une question. La question suivante est de Bill Carey The next question is from Bill Curry, the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I hope one of you could explain the logistics on this. There's no ethics committee meeting currently scheduled, so when is this likely to happen? And have you secured enough votes from the other parties to have these 3 people appear as witnesses?
Thanks for the question. The Ethics Committee's next regular meeting would occur this coming Monday. During the business portion of that meeting, we would put forward a motion calling on or seeking the support of our colleagues for these witnesses to appear. Based on what we all heard at the last meeting, I have every confidence that opposition members will continue to get the answers that Canadians are looking for in this scandal, and we'll pursue that on Monday.
And as a follow-up, what's the interest in Mr. Thies? I can't recall what he said in the documents. What's the reason for calling him?
There's correspondence that we learned of in that document dump. One of few pages, I think, that wasn't heavily redacted, that indicates his involvement in it. Also notably, at the time, he was a senior advisor in the Prime Minister's office and an advisor to cabinet. So those documents indicate that Mr. Thies spoke with the Kielburgers about this program.
Operator, next question.
La question suivante. The next question is from Cormac McSweeney, City News. Please go ahead.
My first question is, well, both these questions will be a little bit off topic, but my first question is on vaccines, and I'm wondering if one of you would be able to address the latest concerns coming out of Europe. The head of the European Union is once again threatening to bring in harsher restrictions or potentially cutting off exports to other countries outside the EU, given shortages and deliveries that they're seeing there for vaccines. Do you fear that Canada supplies could be impacted at all as a result of this, as well, considering the fact that the U.S. may soon be opening its borders to vaccine supplies?
Well, we've been saying for some time that it's through a failure of Justin Trudeau's government that Canada's in the position that we are, where we are relying so heavily on other countries, and we've been asking for many months now to see the contracts and the requirements of other countries to honor their commitments and to demonstrate that the government has not only properly secured the health of Canadians, but also been a good steward of Canadians' dollars in whom they partnered with on those agreements. So we're going to watch it with great interest, but the situation that we find ourselves in is one of the making of this government for failing to plan in the early stages of this pandemic. Instead of striking strong partnerships with our allies, they instead look to partner with the communist regime in China, and we saw that of course those efforts will bear no fruit for Canadians, and now we're playing catch up with our allies.
And as a follow-up on a different matter, there's yet another story in the papers this morning about division within the Conservative Party. This one in regards to whether or not Peter MacKay would be able to run in his riding in Nova Scotia. And the report says that a number of senior Conservatives are pointing the finger of blame at O'Toole for the division as you head into your policy convention this week. Just how divided is the Conservative Party right now, and what does your party need to do at this convention to actually get some unity coming out of it?
We have a united caucus and a united party. We're about to embark on our largest convention, and we have record numbers of delegates and interest, and we're seeing keen interest in our Conservative movement. And it's always good to have a robust exchange of ideas. We're very much looking forward to this virtual get together. And look, it's very unsurprising that people are looking for issues where there aren't any. And it was, of course, Mr. McKay's decision on whether or not to run in the election. It's, I think, commendable and consistent with our party brand that our leader hasn't appointed any candidates. And like other candidates, Mr. McKay would have had the opportunity to run should it have been his desire. But he's made professional decisions based on his professional and family life. And of course, wish him tremendous success in that as one of the co-founders of the party that will be meeting this weekend. Thanks.
Operator, do we have one more question on the phone?
No further questions at this time. Nous n'avons plus de questions pour le moment.
And this concludes the press conference. Thank you.